Guaranteed. All right, good evening, folks. I would like to call the Monday, March 28th meeting of Kimberley City Council to order. Welcome, everyone. Councillor Oakley will not be here tonight. He is away on personal business, and I would like to just remind everybody who's watching online, if you are brought into the conversation, please make sure and turn your video on. Makes it a whole lot easier for us and for those online to be able to see who is talking. We have a couple of late items tonight. Only these two, Maurice?
No further late items, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So both are correspondence. How did you want to handle that? We receive it kind of along with the related item?
Yes, you may do that.
So that would be item 1.1. We'll receive those letters when we get to that item. So with those two additions, could I have a mover to adopt the agenda? Councillor Kiddo, thank you very much. And Councillor McBain seconds. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on March 14th. Mover, please. Councillor Dallum, thank you. And Councillor Roberts seconds. Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we're roaring right along this evening. We have two delegations, and the first delegation up is Don Hunt, the unit chief with BC Emergency Health Services here in Kimberley, better known as our ambulance service. Welcome, Don. It's great to have you here this evening. Take it away.
All right, well, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to the City Council. As the mayor had said, I'm the unit chief here in town. I started in December of last year, so I'm relatively new, and I wanted to take up the opportunity to come introduce myself. As you guys are aware, the ambulance service, both here in Kimberley and across the province, has gone through quite a bit of a change in the last few months. Just prior to my arrival, the service here in Kimberley moved from a part-time on-call staff model to a full-time model. So yeah, hopefully I can answer some of the questions at the end regarding those changes and some of the impacts we felt because of it. I have a short presentation, just a general presentation of BC Ambulance Service, kind of what we do, where we are today, and then I'll take some questions. How do I move the slides? Sorry. So that's just our current mission statement that changed about 3 years ago. Just says what we do. So we are responsible for the delivery, coordination, and governance of appropriate and effective out-of-hospital and interfacility health care throughout BC. Essentially, it just says that BC Ambulance is the one and only ambulance service in BC. So our values, this is something we adopted about 3 years ago as well, and it's really influenced the change that we're going through. We strive to respect people, be compassionate, dare to innovate, cultivate partnerships, and serve with purpose. Our core businesses, this is something that's changed recently as well. Historically, we only did pre-hospital 911 care. But as some of you are aware, we've moved into non-emergency care in the pre-hospital setting. So here in Kimberley, we have a community paramedic who visits people at home. And the goal really was to help people get better care at home as opposed to forcing them to the hospital. Previously, you call, we haul was our motto. We've definitely changed from that, and there's more change coming. We're moving towards models where we will respond on a 911 basis to someone's home, but we may not take them to a hospital. We may take them to a different care center or even just leave them at home, assist them with whatever needs, and bring the community resources into them instead of taking them to the hospital. It's kind of the direction we're heading.
Is that fairly common in the smaller communities that you do that?
The community paramedicine program?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it started about 4 years ago, and I would say it's pretty common. Most small communities have at least one.
Thank you.
So this is just some stats. It's a little bit outdated from 2000, 2001. In that fiscal year, we responded to just under 600,000 pre-hospital emergency calls, which is about 1 per minute in BC. And this is a quick slide, and this might be the key slide of the whole presentation, talking about the different levels of care that we provide throughout the province. So here in Kimberley, our minimum level to work in Kimberley is that emergency medical responder you see at the lower part of the graph. These numbers are a bit dated as far as the whole province, but from 2000, we had just over 500 emergency medical responders throughout the province. Currently in Kimberley, we have 8 at that level. And those are our on-call staff. So we still do have on-call staff at the station. The next level is the most common level across the province. Primary care paramedic. You can see there's just under 3,000 across the province. That number's grown dramatically from that number. Here in Kimberley, all of our full-time staff are trained to that level. We currently have 10 at that level, plus our community paramedic. And that's the base level you would need to work in a larger center. So Cranbrook, that's the base level. Any of the larger municipalities, Vancouver even, that's the base level to work. One step up from that, actually maybe I'll just back up. The primary care paramedic, to become a primary care paramedic, it's about a 6-month journey to get to that and go to school and go through the training. The next step is quite a big jump. It's 2 years of training, full-time, followed by about a year of mentorship. Historically, that was reserved for only the big centers. The closest advanced care paramedic historically was Kelowna to here. But recently, about 2 years ago, we started a trial where we have one single responding ACP, as we call it, in Cranbrook, based out of Cranbrook. So you've probably seen the little SUV car painted like an ambulance. So he operates by himself, and he will respond to Kimberley or any of the surrounding communities to assist the other paramedics with the more serious calls. That is the level that I had trained to prior to coming back to Kimberley. So my goal is really to bring that level of training to Kimberley. The training's here, but there's some administrative stuff in the background that has to change to allow me to practice at that level. And then beyond that level is our flight paramedics. So we have 2 kind of branches. There's the infant transport team and the critical care paramedics. Historically, they were different, but in the last 2 years, with all this change, they've now amalgamated into one group. Again, it's another 2 years of training, followed by about a year of mentorship. When they start, they go to about the 1-year mark, and then they have to decide which way they want to go. Do they want to specialize in adult care or infant care? The infant team is based out of Children's Hospital in Vancouver. They're airplanes and helicopters at Vancouver Airport. Critical care paramedics distributed throughout the province, again in the larger centers, mostly at the larger kind of hub airports. So our closest one would be Kelowna. We have three teams that work in Kelowna on a full-time basis. So that is our staff, BC Ambulance. So again, I think you guys may already know about the changes that have happened. Last fall, we moved from the part-time model to the on-call model. So previous to the fall, we had 1 full-time person in the unit chief role. The rest of the staff was on an on-call basis. Yeah, so what that means is when we get called, there may be a delay for someone to come from their home to respond, much like an on-call firefighter would be. The big difference now is 24 hours a day, we have 2 people in the station or in an ambulance waiting, ready to go. And through that process, we also generated 7 new full-time jobs in Kimberley. We're in the process of hiring an 8th. Hopefully in the next month or 2, we'll have an 8th full-time person who will be irregularly scheduled to cover holidays and sick time for those other staff. We still have a 2nd ambulance here in Kimberley, and that's still staffed with our on-call staff. One of the unintended consequences of going full-time is we're having troubles maintaining that staff level and covering that car, because a lot of the work they depended on is now gone. Something we can talk about more if you guys want to. Sorry. It'll be my wife asking me why I'm not at home yet. There's a picture of Aileen, our local community paramedic. She's in the process of moving into one of the full-time on-car positions. She's elected to bid into that position, and she won the bid. So we've posted to replace her. So that full-time job will also continue in Kimberley as well. So like I've alluded to a few times, 2 to 3 years ago, we had this big change in our direction, and we had this action plan come out, and it's really driven a lot of the change. A lot of that change has been accelerated over the last year because of COVID and the heat wave crisis. It really brought us into the media headlight, and I like to say, fortunately, we had a big influx of funds, even though it was unfortunate how we got them. So things like our full-time jobs in Kimberley are because of that. This was not something that was going to happen for a number of years, but it's accelerated it greatly. Yeah, just the last couple of slides, I just want to remind everybody that we are in a very complex system here, and we are really dependent on our relationships with the other stakeholders, including yourselves and everybody else. You can imagine at 1 call a minute stat across the whole province, there's places where an ambulance could be 4 hours away in this province. It's mind-boggling. And in Kimberley, I think we're actually quite fortunate from that point of view. We have pretty good infrastructure here, and we're not so isolated as many other parts of the world. Next slide. Thanks. That's the end. So I'm happy to answer any questions or to go into more detail on any of the stuff we talked about.
Thanks very much for the presentation, Don.
Yeah, thanks, Don. How busy are you here in Kimberley? What is your call rate?
I don't know the stats. It's probably something I should have looked up before I came. But anecdotally, I'd say we do about 3 calls in a 24-hour period currently. That's the primary ambulance. Our secondary ambulance, if it's staffed at this point, it's almost guaranteed a call per shift. Most of that work is going out to do transfers or cover other communities because we're all having the same issue of staffing crisis. So.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, as we were going through the change, and I forget which year this was for, it might have been 2020, Kimberley had just under 600 calls.
Yeah, I think we're north of 2,000 currently.
Yeah, wow.
So that's a big difference.
Nigel, go ahead.
Thanks, Don. I'm wondering with the level of paramedic coming up in the region and with the new plans coming forward, whether there's going to be any changes with the heart team at the hospital, the high acuity response team.
There is the potential for some overlap, I think, there, and maybe some conflict. But currently, we have the advanced care paramedic, community paramedic in Paramedic, which I didn't talk about, and then we also have that separate responding unit, and it hasn't changed. There has been a few calls where they both interact on the same call. The advanced paramedic has some training, particularly in airway management, that the heart nurse wouldn't have. So when they work together, it's actually a really good team.
Probably just a comment really that having highly trained paramedics on the road 24/7 is far outweighs the benefit of having a nurse temporarily when needed on the road. So I'm just really great to see that the level of training's going up and the level of paramedic coming through is awesome to see. Thanks, Don.
Yeah, the advanced care paramedic in Paramedic it's currently in a trial basis, but we are hopeful that it will become a permanent position. We think it's proved itself.
Thank you, Nigel. Further, Councillor Dallum.
I just want to say welcome back. I haven't seen you since around 92 or so.
I left in 2010 to go to Vancouver to start my training.
So the community paramedic posting, is that a provincial-wide posting?
It is a provincial-wide posting. I believe it's already closed, but we haven't heard who's going to
Right.
or if we'll have
All
a
right.
taker. Some of these positions have to be posted multiple times.
Yeah, I think Aileen was doing an awesome job.
She was good at it.
Yeah. Further? All right, hearing none. Thanks very much, Don. We really appreciate
Thank you for the
you
opportunity.
coming in tonight. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Ryan Peterson from Tech, who is going to talk us about the groundwater notification update. which council will have seen. We have a letter that is being received tonight with respect to the ministry letter that went out. So Ryan, take it away.
Thanks very much. Thanks to the city for having me here tonight. Got some slides. I think Maurice is hopefully pulling up here for me to guide the quick presentation here, and of course questions all the way through whenever you feel the need. Yeah, so we were fortunate to come and talk to the City Council again tonight just to provide a real brief update on our groundwater notification activities, and in particular in response to some recent correspondence sent out from the Ministry of Environment in the last couple of weeks that has sort of increased inquiries, and we've been fending a lot of calls. So you can go ahead there anytime there. Thank you. So just a little bit of the background on the notification originally. TEC provided notification of offsite groundwater migration to landowners affected by influenced groundwater in December of 2020. And so that was about 800 properties in Marysville and a couple properties in Kimberley. I've got a couple maps in a slide to show you exactly where. As we were releasing those notification letters, held a series of public meetings the week of December 14th. Online at the time. It's nice to be back in person here, and as well presented to City Council in early 2021 online there to explain the rationale behind the notification and just to give a sort of an update of what we were doing at the time and plan next steps. We had multiple information and engagement sessions throughout 2021. We continue to do that today to get awareness out of the issue and generally what we're doing and what we're working with the regulatory agencies on. And recently, Ministry of Environment mailed out letters to TEC and CC'd all of the recipients of the notification, original notification letter. So created a bit of confusion in some areas where the residents were getting a letter addressed to TEC with all kinds of requirements in there. Skip ahead, Maurice. I think this is the next slide coming up, just shows our notification area. It's a little probably tricky to see, but it's sort of highlighted within the yellow boundary of in the city area. So there's less than 10 properties notified up in the town site area. And then the city properties located just downstream from our lower mine yard area along Jerry Sorensen Way. And in Marysville, essentially all the properties in Marysville on the east side of Mark Creek and extending southeast of Marysville. So most of the properties notified were in the Marysville area. And these migration letters, just to recap, while they were sent out, our environmental assessments, we do ongoing routine groundwater monitoring, and that indicates that groundwater has been affected by the historical operations and acid rock drainage from the Sullivan operations, and that groundwater is migrated off site to portions of the aquifers underlying those parts of Kimberley and Marysville we just discussed. When that notification occurs, it's a regulatory requirement for responsible parties to provide that notification to property owners under the contaminated sites regulation. And that notification process is also part of the process required to get approval of a long-term remediation plan by the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy. And we also included additional information with those migration letters to provide a little more context on that and just reassure our long-term commitment of managing the Sullivan and providing that reassurance to property owners that the Sullivan has been closed since 2001, but we're still here. We're still very busy all the time and committed to managing our environmental projects. Let's skip ahead there, Maurice. So why were the letters from Ministry of Environment sent out to TEC and property owners in 2022? So the Ministry of Environment for the notification and a lot of our groundwater investigations, environmental projects and reports, they provide our regulatory oversight along with the Ministry of Energy, Mines, Low Carbon Innovation. So they ensure our compliance with Environmental Management Act, ensure that, and they've been working with TEC for many years now through the closure of the Sullivan and ensuring that we're compliant with our requirements there. and also work with the ministry to develop remediation plans. We have plans that were developed at the time of closure that we update periodically, and but the ministry is responsible for overseeing those. So the ministry processed our submissions. When we sent out all of the letters in December of 2020, again, there's about 800 plus letters. We send all copies of those to the ministry along with a database of the properties that we notified. It's just part of the provincial process. So we sent all that in December 2020, and the ministry has a process to basically respond back to those property owners notified with a copy of a letter to the company that sent out the notification. And that's a fairly standard process. It doesn't happen too often, actually, these notifications go out, but it's a fairly standard process. So they have a standard letter that comes along with that. However, in some circumstances, we've seen before in larger examples here, we've got lots of properties notified, that cover letter is a little bit tweaked a bit with additional information and context to help help the property owners understand a bit. So this particular letter, and there's a copy of it within our within the package that we sent to the city. Yeah, real limited context and contact information on that letter, plus the 15-month delay between when we sent out the original letters and when these came back out, combined with a number of requirements for tech from the ministry, just the standard requirements that go in those letters, but they're addressed to the property owners. It's created a lot of confusion. So we've received lots of inquiries from the community members that are just confused about the letter, but also looking for more information for some that we haven't reached during our initial sort of outreach sessions. Okay, Maurice, you can skip ahead. Actually, any questions on the letter now, or should I keep going here? Happy? Okay.
Forge ahead.
Okay, so just to recap some key points. Again, all no longer producing, closed in 2001. We're still a very active site. Reclamation, management, monitoring activities undertaken every day. A big part of that is interception of our groundwater for treatment at our treatment plant, and we've been doing that for over 40 years, and continue upgrades on those systems to address that migration that has occurred. And we're committed to the long-term management of these groundwater issues and continual improvements of philosophy. So to ensure that there's no unacceptable risks to human health and the environment around Kimberley. And we're committed to working with, continuing to work with Ministry of Environment to designate this environmental management area where the property owners are influenced by that water. There's a official designation where that's acknowledged as a responsible party. There's a remediation plan for that, and that helps to protect the owners of those properties and ensure that there's someone on the case. How does this impact property owners? The groundwater, the influenced groundwater. It shouldn't affect the day-to-day use of the property. It's typically more than several meters below the groundwater or ground surface, and you wouldn't encounter that on your property on your day-to-day activities. The municipal drinking water supply from Kimberley is not affected. That's sourced from way up Mark Creek, as you all know, and there's no indication that that it presents any health issues. And related to that, the impacted groundwater is not used for drinking water. The areas where the offsite migration has occurred are supplied by the city supply. This slide just had a bit of a recap on some of our information engagement sessions to date. And it's great, actually, some of you have attended. It's great to see. These have been so helpful in and informing the public and helping us develop the right information for follow-up sessions and ensuring we're getting the right information out there, because it's very complicated. There's a lot of background history. So to get the right message out, we really take this feedback received from these sessions to heart and help that inform our next session. So again, we did the original information sessions in December 2020 at the mail out, and then did a series of more technical information sessions in February, March, dove into the details A little bit, not enough for some, too much for others, but we're trying to strike a balance there with the heavy technical information. We did an updated mail out to all the recipients and some fact sheets with some of the progress along the way, sort of mid-year last year, and was able to get out for some mining month activities. It was fun. We did some community events with trivia, and then a bunch of events at McKim down there with some awareness presentations and some real fun trivia with the McKim students. The Sullivan Liaison Committee was also formed or reformed last year. This was a committee that was developed for closure of the Sullivan mine and didn't meet since the sort of the mid 2000s. So that committee was fired back up again last June. We had a fall meeting October, and that was those will be open to the public, interested participants. Lots of great questions there. That'll be we're excited to keep that liaison committee rolling for not only this notification groundwater discussion, but there's a ton of land management, any kinds of activities. It's a great sort of formal connection to the community. We did a technical session on our ecological risk assessment activity and the great biological monitoring work that's been done in December. We formed, had a meeting of a Sullivan Liaison Committee subcommittee to dive into the details of the water for the technically inclined folks, and met in January 2022. Continued local advertising and articles and media posts to keep the word out there and to provide our contact information, just to remind everyone how to get a hold of us. That's an ongoing thing, and we do maintain a phone line and an email line for community inquiries and try to respond to those in a timely manner. And we've had great feedback from those lines. So that's all been quite a bit of activity to keep everyone informed. We have an upcoming spring Sullivan Liaison Committee planned for June, and further supplemental information sessions as we go along. We'll be describing in more detail the remediation plan we're developing and really what other topics come to the top. We're sort of hitting them in priority for the most questions and interest we're getting. Okay. So for some additional information and just recap, I guess, next steps, we do have the Sullivan website, www.tech.com/Sullivan. And so we've been advertising our engagement sessions there. We've got a little bit of the history, frequently asked questions, and we'll use that as a bit of a repository for information that you can access easily. We have the feedback line, as I mentioned, shown there, 8425 and sullivan.feedback@tech.com. We use that feedback and questions to update our information and guide our further information sessions, so we get the best bang for our buck, and the community does too. We've got the additional sessions coming up in 2022, as I mentioned, and we'll be advertising those along the way. But the next one coming up will be the spring Sullivan Liaison Committee meeting, and that will be in person, where we've had to do everything online here for a bit, but we're excited to get back in person in June. Not sure the venue or the date yet, but that'll likely be in person, hoping to maybe wrap some tours around that. Open to the public. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, come on out, be some great information, and the opportunity again to ask questions. And importantly, we'll continue to work with the regulatory agencies. That's the Ministry of Environment and Mines, our Indigenous partners and the community, to update the groundwater remediation plan that we've been following for many years now. We'll be updating that pursuant to getting a formal approval of this environmental management area. So that plan will be up to date for submission to the regulatory agencies that we intending to do that this year. And part of the submission requirements for that are engagement and to get community feedback. So we'll be getting feedback from the community ahead of that submission for sure. And I think that might be the last one for me. There's again our website, phone number, feedback line.
Excellent. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the presentation. Councillor Roberts, start us off.
Thank you, Ryan. To hear you tell a story, it's like so matter of fact and so or business as usual. And yet when people received the letter, that if they felt like a panic attack was coming their way, have you been able to diffuse that a lot? I suspect they have found you.
Certainly, yeah. They found us through through our feedback line, through everywhere you could find Kimberly on Google, through friends, through signage. They found us in a lot of different ways. So we've certainly been able to provide that information, especially for the more concerned people that were really confused, shocked out of the blue, yes, just give the background information. Certainly had great conversations with a lot of those people, and we'll continue to do that as we receive those inquiries. We had the last couple of weeks been pretty feverishly receiving calls, but it's slowed down in the last few days.
So if you send out information once again, say in 12 months, say, will those people in that designated area expect to get a reply from the ministry yet again?
Depends what type of correspondence we send out. So we'll be sending out information on our plans and updates and that kind of thing. There may not be a formal reason for the ministry to send anything out until potentially we have official application for the remediation plan review or environmental management area, and then there'll be something like that. But probably in the the next several months, any updates will be just probably from tech.
Councillor Dallum.
Another thank you for being here. I did receive some of the panic that you've been exposed to, but kudos to all the work that you guys have done in regards to this. And I know when I first saw the correspondence, I thought it was actually directed at the recipient that it was CC'd to, not tech itself. So I know that confusion caused some panic with some folks. Just a couple of pieces for the people viewing on YouTube. I believe that the highest or closest to the surface amount in that table was 5 meters below the surface. Is that correct?
That was for the depth to groundwater.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
I think in the original notification, yes, it's typically 5 meters and much deeper in some areas. But we found through discussions with the community members that and some neighbors find it shallower than 5 meters. So
okay.
Neighbors beside them, they would have water not encountered within 5 meters. So we basically, it's typically at 5 meters or much deeper in many cases, but it is actually shallower in some locations, but not something you would encounter on your property on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
Councillor Goodwin.
Yes, thanks, Ryan. It's unfortunate that it took the ministry so long to respond, but it's more unfortunate that in the first sentence of their letter, they didn't just date the notification that you sent out. So if they had said the notification of December 2020, I and a whole bunch of people would have realized they were talking about an old situation. But the way it was worded, I thought, oh my goodness, is there something new going on I don't know about? And yeah, and I'm tempted to write a letter to them and just gently say, look, please include the date on any of these letters going forward, and it will be much more informative for people.
Absolutely. I'm sure any of those suggestions would be great. Yeah, the time lag in the content is mentioned. Yeah, it was confusing, caused concern in particular. Yeah, if you even forgot about the original letter. So we're working through that. Some people may have not maybe threw the letter out or something like that. So we'll just work through questions as they come up, and continue ensuring everyone's informed and we get that feedback and address it. We're here. We're here for it.
Thanks, Kent. Further? All right, hearing none. Thanks very much, Ryan, for coming in this evening. We really appreciate the update and the clarification.
Thank you very much for
Thank
having
you.
me. Ski season.
All right. Next up, we're heading into bylaws, permits, and policies. And first up, we have the development variance permit for 253 Wallinger. And the motion on the floor is that council approve the development variance permit for 253 Wallinger for the intent to vary the sections noted in the staff report. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Dallum moves. And Councillor, somebody going to second this? Councillor,
Mr. Mayor, if I could note that the bits of correspondence were relative to this.
yep.
Okay.
We'll receive the correspondence, Sandra. Councillor Kiddo seconds. So is there a reticence to second? Is that what I'm sensing here, or is everybody just, go ahead?
Well, I think what Councillor Roberts is probably alluding to is some of the correspondence, and I had some questions too. And you know, just getting some feedback. I found the correspondence to be really good feedback in the sense that we're getting kind of the beat on the street from those who are down in the Plattsville commercial owners, and you know, I just found it interesting that it seems like there's a lot of demand for commercial space. So it's kind of goes in contrary to what we heard, you know, in the presentation 2 weeks ago. I guess it was the last regular meeting we had. So I found that to be very informative, and it definitely makes me think a little bit differently about this variance. So
Further? So demand is an interesting thing. It has to do with location. It has to do with type of space. There's a whole pile of variables that are involved in it. And, you know, I think if we take a look, I know when Deer Park, the project in Deer Park announced there were going to be anywhere between 6 and 10 commercial spaces that were going to be part of that. The feedback was exactly the opposite. We don't need more commercial spaces. You know, there's already empty spaces out there. You know, why would we be doing more? So I think that, you know, it's a very dynamic area. It also depends on what type of business is going to go in. Is it retail? Is it professional services? You know, what are those? So I think I certainly have accepted at face value the comment that space has been for rent for more than a year, actually both of those spaces, and there have been no takers. So, you know, we're not talking about somebody who is purely a short-term rental investor here. The individual we're talking about is invested in that entire block that contains our place and Grow in addition to these 2 spaces. So, you know, I think we're talking with, you know, about somebody who is invested in the community and is doing his best to try and get that space rented. So it's not, I don't think, a black and white situation when it comes to renting commercial space. Nigel and then Kent.
Maybe a question for Scott or Maurice. The second letter alluded this property has already been rented out for short-term rentals. Is that true?
They did apply for a short-term rental permit license, and that's when we caught that it was not in line with the zoning, and the planning department recommended that they apply for a variance. So, and maybe Troy can give more detail on this.
Go ahead, Troy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Maurice. Yeah, that's correct. The property owner here has applied for short-term rental license that has not yet been issued, is awaiting outcome of this this development variance permit decision. And I'll point out the applicant is on the line again tonight and able to answer any questions that council may have. I'm not exactly sure. There may have been some use or some rental of the space as short-term rental in the interim, but Mr. Sparks might be better suited to speak to that.
So I guess the specific question then, Dan, is this, have those renovations been completed? And has the space been leased out to date?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I was unclear of whether or not you could hear me. So the answer is yes, it has been rented out. The renovations on this went on for months, and honestly, the requirement for the tourist home or tourist zoning permit was something we honestly didn't know we needed until towards the end. There was a change, I recall, in how short-term zoning applications were being handled. And so we had contacted planning ahead of that change and were informed that there was a change coming up in terms of how things were being operated. That may or may, let me just clarify there, that may or may not have been planning, that may have been the front desk at the City Hall who told us that. So by the time we got our application in, which we honestly thought was simply a rubber stamp, some rentals had already happened at that point, yes.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, so is that coming somewhere else? So in the report from planning, it is mentioned that they had received at the time of the writing no submissions, but we have now 2 late attachments to the meeting. So I was going to ask Troy if there's anything in those 2 letters that we've received tonight that would change the way you wrote your report.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. I would just first off just clarify in our staff report there is 2 letters of support that are attached, and I think they were actually included in the initial staff report last meeting as well. So they were provided to the applicant and submitted in support of their application. That's from the I believe that's from the 2 immediate business neighbors to this unit. And then yeah, since notices were sent out from the last meeting, we've received the 2 letters of objection, I guess, from 2 other business owners in the Plattsville area. Would it have changed our recommendation on the report? I'm not sure. We certainly our staff report shares and points out some of these concerns. Assuming that the objectors here might have looked through our comments already in the staff report, but yeah, we struggled with this as well from a staff recommendation standpoint. I think that you know, in the grand scheme of things, it is a single unit, a fairly small unit, and so it is. You know, we do share in some ways that there is plenty of other options for tourist accommodation, either existing or opportunities to use other properties where tourist accommodation is allowed. We had identified that you know, we were getting similar inquiries that there is a shortage of commercial rental properties as well, and especially small units. And the applicant did speak to his efforts to try to get that rented out in the past. We pointed out as well that, you know, this isn't necessarily a permanent change. And we also pointed out that tourist accommodation already is a permissible use in the commercial Plattsville zone, as well as the surrounding C1 commercial zone. So it's not like they're, you know, proposing a brand new use category here. It is a permissible use. It's just not, the way the zoning is written, it's just not permitted on the main floor. So so it's a variance to allow that use on the main floor of the building rather than above the main floor. So I think all of those considerations combined, I mean, like I said, we're torn. Initially, I think we wanted to recommend against this, but given all of the information and the balance of you know, kind of evidence, if you will, I think that it's probably a minor consideration in this aspect, and the single unit isn't going to tip the scale in either direction to something that can't be fixed down the road. Like I said, if you know, maybe if there is too many tourist accommodation properties, then maybe the owner will find a way to convert this back to a more regular commercial use, like retail or whatever else might be required.
Thanks for that, Troy.
Further.
Pardon me, further, Councillor Goodwin? No? Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, I read in here, like from the previous letter, that all inspections and permits had gone through. Shouldn't something like this have been picked up in the permitting process along the way somewhere, like prior to this work being done? I mean, I certainly don't want to, you know, I don't, my intention here, I think tonight is not to have somebody rip something out that's already been done. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of work put in there, but shouldn't the permitting process and have picked up on this along the way?
Yeah, and I think it was identified earlier on, like the applicant spoke to, there was a change of, with the implementation of the short-term rental bylaw, there's a bit of a change of procedure on our side. I think there was, you know, I don't know if it was misunderstanding or miscommunication of kind of the intended use of the space as renovations were happening. I think initially it was, you know, maybe not solely for tourist accommodation use, and so anyway, you know, but fair point there that you know, this probably should have come forward to council a lot earlier, but it is where we are, and we're faced with the question in front of us.
Thanks for that, Councillor McBain. I'll get that right. So, so I guess further to Councillor McBain's comments, with the implementation of the short-term rental bylaw, would most of the kind of T's, pardon me, T's crossing and I's dotting now be kind of part of that process? In other words, is it less likely that anything will get lost in the mix?
Yeah, hard to say, I guess. I mean, it's, I mean, there's potential for things to get missed at all times, I guess, or to, but you know, now it's clear that a separate license is required to operate a short-term rental, and that should be helpful for us to catch similar or other examples.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Troy. Didn't mean to put you on the spot there. Councillor Dillon?
So I'm going to vote in favor of this. As it's been stated, the only thing that is out of the ordinary is what level of the building it's on. Obviously, if this is what the market will create the appetite for, it's a small space. It seems like a simple use, and I think that planning has done the right thing, made the right call with this. So I don't see any reason to oppose it.
Thanks for that, Councillor Dallum. Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I mean, I just going back to my other comment. I mean, I don't have no intention of making somebody, you know, somebody's put a lot of work into this and ripped it out. But I do think there is something to. I think the floor does matter. I think the way that our town is laid out, it's kind of a typical configuration, right? Like having commercial space on the ground floor and residential space up on the upper floor, and it is a visible area. So you know, it did strike me as odd when this first was presented to us. You know, I hope eventually, you know, maybe this is just a short-term fix, and somebody will come along and want to use this space as a, you know, professional office or what have you. But you know, other than the fact that you know, if the work hadn't been done already, I don't think I would have been supportive of this. But I understand the fact that, you know, these things have been put in, and I don't want to have somebody undo something that they've already done, even though probably wasn't the best. Hasn't been gone about the best way.
Councillor Roberts?
The plan that I have in front of me says it's a proposed space. It's not really clear to me that all of that work has already been done. It's in the letter? Okay, sorry, I missed that. I personally will still choose to vote against this. I believe that moving forward, this is not a good precedent that we will be setting.
All right, last chance for comments. All right, we'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? So the tie means the motion is passed? Or the tie means the motion is defeated? Okay. So Councillors McBain, Dallum, and McCormick were for, and Councillors Roberts, Kiddo, and Goodwin were against. Unfortunately, Councillor Oakley isn't here to break that tie tonight, so the motion is defeated. All right, next up, we need to formally receive those letters of correspondence. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Roberts, thank you. And Councillor Kiddo seconds. Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have the signed development variance permit for 317th Ave. I think this is the fourth time as a charm on the variance coming through. And I
Excuse
see
me,
that-
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Hi, I just didn't catch who moved and seconded the receipt of correspondence.
Roberts moved and Kiddo seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor is that council approve development permit to allow the installation of a freestanding sign on the property located at 361 317th Ave, which is in the Marysville Industrial Park, with varying the following sections as outlined in the staff report. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Kiddo seconds. Do we have any further discussion? Troy, did you want to have last word on this?
I think we've all been back and forth enough on this one. I think the recommendation is, and our report is clear.
Okay, good work on kind of getting to a resolution on this. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, under new business tonight, we have the town site storm sewer relining, the tender award, and we have three motions associated with this. First is that council award the town site storm sewer relining project to Martech Underground Services in the amount not to exceed $254,721, exclusive of GST, but inclusive of other taxes. And further, that council authorize the chief admin officer to appoint or his appointed designate to execute the contract documents associated with the award. And finally, that council authorize the expenditure of the remaining $65,000 budgeted for the town site storm sewer relining project to the fund to fund the replacement of infrastructure, which is mostly manholes, to city crews ahead of the contracted work. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McBain, thank you very much. Councillor Goodwin seconds. All right, Chris, can you give us the overview, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm actually going to defer to Shane on this one. Shane has done most of the legwork on this project, and he'd probably be the one best to speak to this tonight.
All right, cool. Welcome, Shane. And yeah, I think this is the first time you've presented to council. Pleasure to have you here this evening. What do you have for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, so the townsite storm sewer relining, it's a project to replace the aging infrastructure between Tadnack Boulevard and Cranbrook Street. We had initially, as part of the project, we had initially had the scope to be the entire length, and due to some volatility in pricing and volatility just in the market itself, we had minimized the scope down to from Tadnack to Moy and 2nd Avenue. With the pricing that we got in, we have the budget to complete the entire length of it, as well as replacing four manholes with the city crews.
All right.
Yeah, if there's any questions from Mayor, Council.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have a couple, Shane.
Sure.
We can't let you off too easy tonight. Council. Questions? Comments? Okay, I do. Sorry, man, but I have a couple of questions. So,
Yep.
so the tender was for the winning tender was for $135,000, or at least that's what the bid price was. And then the total amount of the contract is 254. I'm assuming, and I'd like you to clarify that the difference between that is the optional work that was mentioned, or can you help me out with that?
Yep. Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so the additional money there is for the optional work. We have about 150 meters of pipe that we will increase the scope by to get the additional lining from 2nd Avenue and Moy Street up to Cranbrook Street.
Okay, very good. And was that optional work part of the bid?
Yes, it was. Yeah, we
Okay.
included all the optional work as part of the bid so that we could get pricing. And so that if we got good pricing, that we could expand that scope easily.
Right. Okay, awesome. I was a little confused because it showed in the bid prices for the three respondents. It was just the first part of that. So thank you for that clarification. It's also really good to see three solid responses to the tender. We've seen tenders come through in the past where we've had one response, which makes us a little bit nervous. So it's always good to see good participation from our contractor community. Good work on this, Shane. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Last call, council. All right, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, next up, we have the Canada Active Transportation Fund grant application, and the motion on the floor is that council directs staff to develop and submit a grant application for this to this fund for improvements to the active transport facilities along Jim Ogilvie Way between Rails to Trails and 313 Drive. Mover, Councillor Dallum, thank you. Councillor McBain seconds. Discussion. So I have a question. Shane, are you taking this one as well?
Yes, yeah, I can take this, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, cool. So this is kind of up from the Marysville Arena, from 313 up to Rails to Trails, is it?
Yes, that is correct. So the current trail ends at 303rd, and we have the current bike lane up there runs alongside the existing road. So this this active transportation grant would allow us to widen the road and provide a physical barrier between the active transportation user groups and motor vehicles.
Okay, awesome. Would that be similar to what's done on Rotary Drive? Kind of with the
Is that's where the like the bolt-in
bollards?
bollards are?
Yeah.
Similar. We'd be looking more at potentially like the shorter like concrete jersey barriers, or potentially like a small curb in there.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Last call for questions. All those in favor? The motion is carried. Thanks very much, Shane.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up, we have the City of Kimberley check run in the amount of $536,173 to be approved as paid. Motion, please. Councillor McBain, Councillor Roberts seconds. Any discussion? Go ahead, Sandra.
I'll just note that there's a couple of large checks been made payable to Stoic Industries Construction. If you recall, at our last meeting, we approved Stoic to begin work on fixing the roof at Center 64, and there they are, already started. So.
All right, outstanding. Thanks for that, Sandra. Further comment? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, correspondence this evening. We have one item for potential action, and that's the letter from Brett Price, the director of the Kimberley Trail Society. And the request is for a letter of support from council for a Rails to Trails extension as identified in the report. Councillor McBain moves, Councillor Kiddo seconds. Discussion. Go ahead, Nigel.
Just sounds like a really exciting project to connect the Rails to Trails right to the portal and be able to bring people through into town from Centennial Park. So yeah, if they can get it off the ground, would be a pretty big amenity for the city.
Yeah, Councillor McBain.
What he said.
Councillor Goodwood.
I looked at the map and tried to get a better view on the planning department website. It looks like there'd be a bunch of new trail that would have to be built. I'd like to run this past the planning department and just see if they have any concerns or issues with geotechnical stuff or anything along that route, just because I don't know it very well. And there's no staff involvement yet in this. And I would be reassured if planning said, yep, this is a great place for a trail.
Scott, go ahead.
I believe this grant application is due on Thursday. And seeing as this proposed trail extension is on private property, we would not have access to geotechnical information on it on.
Well, some of
short
it's on
notice.
city property.
We don't have geotechnical reports on all city property either. So unless Troy wants to jump in and state otherwise, I don't think there would be much point in providing a letter of support after the due date if we don't have.
No, if the deadline is an issue for sure.
Yeah.
I think having staff weigh on it is a good idea, but if it's not going to work, then we have to think about.
Yeah, Troy's
here.
Still on the line. He can jump in if he has a library of geotechnical reports I'm unaware of.
Councillor Kittle?
The grant is just looking at the logistics to see if it's even possible. So I guess that's part of the grant, if it's successful, is to start sorting through some of this stuff.
Yeah, I got that impression too, that this was to do the preliminary work and validate that it in fact would work. Go ahead, Councillor. Good.
Yeah. So Troy, if you're there, have you had a look at this? Do you have any preliminary comments?
I mean, I think just as Councillor Keeter just said there, I think the intention there is really to continue looking at the potential for it. I mean, even if we did pause for further input from us, I mean, it's expensive to get into geotechnical reports. We don't, as Scott said, we don't have them for all properties or that we own. And you know, quite a specific thing, and it's going to take some time to do that. But I think it's premature and too early to do that anyway. They're still, I believe, just trying to look at route options and you know, figure out you know, kind of orders of magnitude of costing and everything else there. So and it, you know, we haven't looked very closely. I was quite you know, I know this project was identified in the feedback of the active transportation plan a while back, but it wasn't entirely clear to us what the route was or kind of the scale of that at this time, or that at that time. So you know, it's you know, I think it we'll see, I guess, if they get some funding to pursue it and look at the potential for that route. I mean, I think there is you know, a number of different things that need to be looked at through that process to kind of confirm the feasibility there. But I think in any, you know, certainly there's no time or no capacity in the short term to squeeze that in anyway.
Thanks for that, Troy. Further?
Yeah, I guess it's worth going ahead and writing a letter of support for the grant. One of the things I thought of was that we're going to have two trails now. We're going to have one above and the current rails to trails, and both will need maintenance and being looked after in the future. So we're adding new infrastructure and not taking away any old, I assume. So, but that's something that can be looked at as we go forward.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kent. I think the way the rails to trails ends now, you know, kind of circling down and coming out on Rotary Drive, and then Rotary Drive kind of being the last leg. This will definitely be an improvement on that, just from an overall trail experience point of view. I've driven underneath that trellis for about 20 years now, and every time I look at it, I see, you know, is there something that can be done to make that thing useful? And so we have an opportunity. I think it'd be pretty awesome. Okay, call the question. All those
Excuse me,
in favor?
Mr. Mayor, what is the question exactly? Because we didn't have a straight motion on the floor.
It was to provide a letter of support.
Thank you.
Yeah, for the grant application. All those in, did we have a mover and a seconder? We did, yeah. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, next up we have the letter from Howard Logan, which was referenced earlier today with respect to the letter from the ministry regarding tech. Councillor Kiddo moves receipt and Councillor Dallum seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, that's it for regular items tonight. While we are waiting to see if we have any folks to dial in with any questions or comments, we'll do our roundtable with the councillors. But for those listening in who may want to comment on anything that we have had as part of the meeting this evening, You can call 1-800-741-7180 and reference meeting number 2498-037-9217 when you are so prompted.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Troy.
sorry to interrupt, but just I know that for one of the DVP applications, when Mr. Sparks was trying to call in, he was having some difficulty. So I think there might be an incorrect meeting number on the agenda package there. I can read out the correct meeting number for you if that's helpful.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, because he had emailed me and I'd sent him the updated or the correct number there, and he was able to call in after that. So the meeting number is 2480-411-9684.
Okay, so once again, the number to call is 800-741-7180. And the meeting number, when prompted, is 80-411-9684.
The first set of numbers was 2480.
2480.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon. Thank you, Troy. 2480-411-9684. All right, if that isn't confusing enough, it'll be a miracle if we get a call on that one. But while we are waiting, let's do our councillor round table. Councillor Roberts, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm due to go to a nature park meeting this week, which is right smack near the end of the month this time. The only thing I have to report is taking the opportunity to go to the open house of the new and updated
Chateau Kimberley.
updated Larynx. I started the one to
Larynx,
start
yep.
with a K, sorry. And it's really lovely, and the people worked really hard to make it an amazing experience. It's full of local artisans work, and it's really very nice, and I'm wishing them good success. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Sandra. Nigel.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Kyle.
So I have nothing from my board appointee liaison positions, but I did want to bring up a couple of things. So we have engagekimberley.ca, which is a portal for people to reach out, so that we're not dealing with random Facebook things. Engagekimberley.ca will allow people to be heard directly on specific projects. So I just wanted to stress that piece and bring it back into the light. And the other piece was for volunteers and organizations looking for volunteers or even to fill a position. We have Volunteer Connector on our city website as well. And the only way it's going to really work is if people are reminded about it and groups use it. So if you're a volunteer looking, look on Volunteer Connector. If you're looking for volunteers in any board or society, put a posting on Volunteer Connector. Let's give this thing some life and help it move itself forward.
Scott, are you familiar, or have we identified a date that we're going to go live yet?
I haven't identified a date, but Pam's not on the line anymore.
I don't see. Pam, are you there?
Oh, she's still there.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Do we have a date when we're expecting to go live?
I'm hoping tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, awesome.
So just to clarify, that's in regards to Engage Kimberley?
Correct.
Just for anybody watching. Engage Kimberley, bang the table, be heard. Thank you.
I've received some great feedback. I appreciate it. If anybody else has any to add, we can get those changes made really quickly and get that live tomorrow.
Yeah, it looks awesome, Pam. Nice work.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Kent.
Okay, we've had one meeting of the Kimberley Health Center Society, and there's a fair bit going on there. We are just finishing our interviews with potential building manager applicants, and we hope to select a new manager for the building sometime this week, and they would start in May. We have a meeting with Wendy Booth on Wednesday as a first step in the CBT Nonprofit Advisors Program, so we're having our assessment done on Wednesday evening. We are shortly going to launch a search for new directors, and we are listed on the Kimberley Volunteer website, I believe. And the other thing is we've asked the engineering company that we've been working with for a number of years, Falcon Engineering in Kelowna, to give us a bare bones budget for bringing one of the 3 upstairs wings up to current codes for fire sprinkler and ventilation. And we will likely be approaching the city with that estimate and requesting an investment from the city in the health center to get us moving, because we have been stymied. As we've heard in other submissions, there are people crying out for commercial space in Kimberley of one sort and another. We have over 12,000 square feet on the 3rd floor, but no one can occupy it until we invest in that building. So because of the relationship between the health center and the city of Kimberley, we feel that we need to come back to the city and get the city involved. So that's coming up soon, I hope. That's it.
All right, thanks, Kent. Jason.
Yeah, so I was at the health center meeting as well, and just to echo what Kent said, yeah, it would be great to get a few more directors on board. I think we do have a good group. I haven't been on it too long, but there's some renewed energy there, and I think we're starting to see things move in the right direction. So if we had some more people involved, it'd be great. Had a meeting with the library board. Can't remember which day that was. Thursday, perhaps. First in-person meeting that we've had that I've been since I've been on the board. So which is about 7 or 8 months or so. Starting to get things back on track from some of the staffing issues that were going on. It's a little premature at this point, but obviously there'll be a search for a new director. But I suspect that won't start until the summer, just based on some budget constraints and things like that. But yeah, definitely nice to get things back on track and seeing people in person again. So yeah, so it was really positive, and that's it for me.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for that, Jason. It is indeed great to start to see the in-person meetings and events starting to happen. They are so much more productive. I've got just a few things to touch on. I was over at the Lyrics open house as well, and I think the one comment I would like to make with regard to the Lyrics is the tremendous investment that the owners are making in the community. It is real testament to the vitality and the confidence that we have in town with respect to our community, and to see a group like that investing that much money is pretty awesome to see. If anybody hasn't, I would encourage anybody to go and have a look, as they are encouraging everybody to come and have a look. They've done a pretty awesome job at the renovations to the former chateau. I also spent much of the last couple of weeks meeting with a number of developers, in particular an industrial developer. I'm throwing out some opportunities, or suggestion of opportunity, I guess, to come in and help with some of the investment that we're making in the Marysville Industrial Park, as well as the other industrial lands that we have. It would be great if the city didn't have to take a leadership role in that if we could have a developer come in and either work with us or in support, or us in support of them in moving those developments forward. I also met with a hotel developer. Actually, we had a meeting with a developer as well as a landowner where a potential hotel could be placed. It is not entirely obvious, mainly because of COVID, but certainly, pardon me, also because of COVID, pardon me, that we are actually losing visitor accommodation in town. We are losing a number of condominiums to full-time residents that can't find another place to live, are buying the tourist accommodation to live in full-time. Those numbers are higher than we would certainly like, and higher than a lot of people think. And we're also losing a number of short-term rentals, people that have been in the STR business for a while, over to long-term rental, thanks to the really nothing short of the disaster that we had with the arson at the ski hill this year. Our visitors have been down through the course of the winter season significantly, and many of these owners that have STRs on a professional basis are needing to move to long-term rental, which is good for the long-term rental, but it's also reducing the inventory that we have. So we are absolutely in need of a traditional hotel here in Kimberley. The Lyrics is really the only hotel we have, and it's 20 rooms. Everything else is suites and condominium, and we really need a traditional hotel. So I've been pounding the bushes on this for about 3 or 4 years now, and we're finally, I think, have some legitimate prospects for the future. So obviously, it's such early days that I can't be more specific than that, but I just want everybody to know that we have a lot of interest in major investment in the community. And as we've just finished off our budget, we know that what we refer to as non-market change, which is basically converting construction cost into assessment, is one of the key ways that we keep taxes to current residents down. And it's really important that we have that investment. Last comment I want to make is on the CBC, the CBC, who has this little contest called the best small town in British Columbia, or the best small town in BC. I've talked to a lot of people who think that this is kind of a bad idea, kind of pitting small communities in BC against one another. And I guess that is one view, but it's being done, and we're participating. We are a town participating in the process, and we have made it to round 3. We were up against Invermere in the first round, up against Rosslyn in the second round, and I believe we are now up against Fernie in round number 3. And voting on this starts tomorrow morning. So I think we have from Tuesday to Friday to get as many votes as we possibly can to hopefully get us to round 4. Councillor Dallum.
Do you have the address to where we vote?
I don't have the specific address in front of me, but it's all over Facebook. If you have a Facebook account, I'm pretty sure that you in fact have seen it. And there will be a lot of posts reminding everybody that we're starting round 3 tomorrow morning. So stay tuned. Okay, that's it. Do we have any callers, Maurice?
No caller, Mr. Mayor.
I am totally surprised by that. Okay, motion to adjourn. Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Goodwin seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, folks.